Hello, everyone. My name's Melissa, and this is Kelsie-Ann. And today, on Tuesday, 9:15, a little bit later than 9:15, we are coming on for the Leaders Impact Lab. So this live stream happens every week on Tuesday with myself and a guest. Often that guest is Kelsie-Ann, and we are here to talk about some challenges that we face as leaders and explore new perspective, new ways of approaching our practice, our leadership practice, to get better results. So if you're joining us, I hope you have your coffee in hand. I hope today is a great day, and I hope we can make it even better. So today we're talking about the 3 drive factors that help leaders, that support leaders to show up and to show up consistently at the top of their game. So if we haven't met yet, again, my name's Melissa, and I'm an executive coach and a management consultant. What I do every day is I work with leaders such as yourself, and I help them create high-performing teams and to create an environment where employees are excited to be a part of, are excited to show up to work, and are engaged, motivated, committed to doing great work together. And leadership comes with a ton of challenges. So what it looks like, it sounds fluffy, but on a day-to-day basis, what it looks like on the inside is we are tackling big leadership problems, big leadership challenges, tough decisions where people aren't always happy with the decisions you're making. No clear solutions, or every decision, every potential solution might have a consequence, right? And some potential consequences to any direction that you take, and some risks. We carry a lot of responsibilities as leaders. It doesn't matter who done it or who's at fault. It is your responsibility. And we can't control anyone. All we can do is influence. So there is a balance that comes, and dealing with those tensions between delivering productivity, outcomes, meeting business goals, as well as bringing people along for the ride. If we're leading people, right? We manage things, we lead people. So it takes a lot of energy to lead. And that's why I want to talk about drive. I meet a lot of leaders that either, that have a ton of drive. I would say every person that I work with has drive, but sometimes it's unbalanced. Sometimes we have to apply so much drive that we burn out, or it's inconsistent. Sometimes we're completely driven. Sometimes we're having trouble showing up. So I want to talk about these 3 factors, because sometimes it's because we're using one and not the others. We're over-relying, overusing. So I want to talk about these 3 drive factors. So as we're going through today, I want you to think about what that looks like for you, and which one you might want to pay a little bit closer attention to and bring more into the forefront to help support you. So Kelsie-Ann, tell us about you.
So my name is Kelsie-Ann, and I am your Director of Marketing and PR. And I tend to offer the employee perspective when we're looking at leadership, as it comes down to that.
So what would you say about drive? When you think about drive, what comes up, what comes to your mind? And for you who are listening right now, I'd love to know, when you think about drive, what's coming up for you?
When I think about drive, well, it makes me think of driving a car. But I think that there's almost like a duality to it, because of there's an internal, I know I have an internal drive, but there's also an external drive. There's external drivers and internal drivers. So it's, I guess, to know which one is driving you when. maybe, I don't know.
Yeah. So external versus internal.
Internal.
It's good. We're going to talk about that. That is definitely one of the drivers that we're going to talk about. What else is coming to mind?
As with anything, usually behind action or inaction is emotions or feelings, and why we do the things we do and how we do them. So I guess emotions and feelings.
Yeah. And what emotions come up when you think about drive?
A mixture. So a mixture of like excitement, a mixture of like a little bit of stress, a little bit of how do I describe that feeling? Um, like motivation, um, like feeling accomplished,
Mm.
right? I like ticking things off my list.
Yeah, that
So,
feels good.
those kinds of things, I guess come top of mind.
Yeah, so I'm feeling kind of or what I'm picking up there in your answer. And if you're listening, please, I want to know what's coming up for you as you're thinking about drive. I want to explore this topic a little bit. I'm picking up like some excitement, some pride, some sense of accomplishment. I'm also picking up stress and maybe a little bit of fear attached to yours. So there's a combination there.
Mhm. That so many things to do, not enough time. How are we going to get it all done? Where's it going to go? Like the outcomes that, again, I can't control, but knowing what's coming up and how, so just, I guess there's all external factors that come into play about my drive as your employee that relate to our business and how it's going, but also what's going on in my personal life as well.
What drive has looked like for me classically in my life is it is coming from the internal, but there's so much of it. It's almost like I'm overdriven and I tend to burn out. So I'm always doing, and there's no space for anything else but the doing. I'm kind of stuck on overdrive. And I'm curious because I this is like a struggle for me. The impact on you as an employee. And here I'm putting you really on the spotlight. So people
Yeah.
listen closely to her answer. I did not know this question was coming. But I'm
No,
curious,
Yeah.
how I'm managing my drive, how that's affecting you.
Um, I think it kind of shifts me into not overdrive as well, but like, okay, if Melissa's still going, like I need to still be going,
Mhm.
right? Like she's giving it her all, I need to give it my all too,
Yeah.
right? Um, and sometimes I do, and sometimes I just don't have that capacity, right? Like that I know my limits to be like, okay, whoa, like I need to take, I'm not going to do X. I'm going to do X another day or whatever, like whatever it is. Um, but it's in a good way, I guess. It's not in a like ugh way. It's like okay, like we're doing it for the team kind of way.
So if I show up with energy and drive, that helps your drive to show up.
Mhm.
But when I overdo, When I'm burning out, you also get the sense of that's the expectation. So it's a double-edged sword. How we're showing up is setting up a standard, even if I've never asked you to do more than what is asked, or to, there's still a sense of, if I'm going, then you should be going as well. So that is something to think about. We are setting the tone. All right, ready to jump in these three drive factors?
I am.
So we'll reveal, and I'm talking me because Kelsie-Ann has no idea what we're talking about. Completely new to her, new topic. So number one, the first drive factor. So just to give you a little bit of context, as an EQ assessor, I can assess somebody's EQ and their EQ competencies. And there's 8 of these EQ competencies that I assess. And there's 3 of these competencies that are tied to your drive. And those are the 3 that we're going to talk about today. So the first one that I look at, and especially when I'm measuring leaders, or sometimes I will measure people who want to become leaders. They're saying, do I have this? Well, drive is important because leadership is hard, and you're going to have to show up at when it really matters. And when it really matters is when stress is high and things are not going well and there's chaos. These are the times when we are required to show up. So it takes a lot of drive to show up when it really matters. So number one, I'm looking at intrinsic motivation. So you talked about that external versus internal. So quick definition on intrinsic motivation: it is gaining energy from your personal values and commitment. And if we can add a little bit of some visual in there, it's kind of like the fire inside. So now we're not talking about carrots and sticks. We're not talking about anything external. We're not even talking about personal gain per se. It's a drive that comes from your values and from your commitments. All right. So when we talk about grit, falls into this category. Intrinsic motivation, we're talking about checklist. We're talking about SMART goals, committing to doing a thing within a certain amount of time, a certain way, delivering on results. It's shorter term than one of the other drive factors that we're going to talk about. And when I'm saying short term, it could still be 5-10 years commitment. Those are still within your lifetime. All right. So there's a lot of talk about grit. There's a lot of talk about, showing up and doing the things and just do it, and goal setting, and all of this falls within this intrinsic motivation.
Okay.
And it's a beautiful thing, but this is where we burn out, when it gets stuck on overdrive. I have a little analogy that plays in my mind, but I'll bring it in after I've explained the 3, and then I'll kind of show you what it looks like. So that is one. So do you need more intrinsic motivation? Do you have that fire burning inside, and how balanced is that fire? Is it there most of the time, or is it going out? Do you have, going on embers, or is your fire out of control? And what is a good balance for you? So this is the meditation here. Number 2, optimism. Optimism is actually the EQ competency that is the most predictive of success. We want optimism. Now, optimism is not positive thinking.
What?
If you've listened to me before, I always say it, because every time I say it, every time I say the word optimism, I can visually imagine people going to positive thinking in their mind, and it's not the same thing.
Okay.
Positive thinking is I'm just going to focus on the good stuff. I'm going to pretend nothing else is happening. I'm not going to look at the bad. I'm just going to focus on the good stuff. And that has a tone of like burying your head in the sand.
Mhm.
And I'm going to think good thoughts to attract good things so that good things are happening, and only good things, is what I allow in my life, or whatever that kind of thinking is.
Mhm.
Optimism is when you can actually look at what is not working. You can look at what's real. You can accept that things are not great, that there is chaos, that it's not pretty, and still believe that options are possible even if you can't see them yet. Okay, very different.
Mhm.
I can see what's wrong, and I can deal with what's wrong and hold the belief that something is possible. So the definition from 6 seconds, which is where this model comes from, this EQ model that I work with, it's taking proactive perspective of hope and possibility. Right? So knowing that there are more roads that lead us there than the one that we are currently seeing,
Mhm.
which is maybe a bumpy, not so pretty road, maybe one we don't want to go down.
Mhm.
So it's holding that belief and then exploring what could be, not being stuck to one particular path. And there is a lot. So as you're thinking about those possibilities, I'm going to ask you, Kelsie-Ann, what's coming up for you inside? What are you feeling when you think about possibilities?
I feel more in control. Like
Control.
it
Yeah.
feels better than and I guess it's like looking at the data as data, looking at the facts as facts, and not like emotions are always there. So I know I want to say like, oh, put emotions aside, but no, recognize, okay, whatever's coming up is coming up for a reason, but also it is what it is. And how are you going to take that information and move forward despite it all, good and bad, right? And use that to kind of propel you forward.
Yeah. So as you're stepping into optimism, can you feel the drive?
Mm-hmm.
For me, it has a sense of like lifting me up. And people who have high optimism, and I've measured leaders who have really high optimism, it feels really good to be around them.
I bet.
It feels light, it feels exciting. It fuels the people around them. It feels like sunshine. That's what it feels like, sunshine. So as I'm meeting leaders, even before I measure them, that's kind of like my internal, like, how much sunshine do I feel from them?
So you can kind of see before you even measure them, okay, they're probably going to be high on the optimism just by how much sunshine they're giving you.
Yeah.
So my question for you is, if I was a leader who maybe I'm low on optimism and it's like, okay, I want to get there. How, like if I'm sitting here and I'm a leader and I'm identified, okay, that's what I want, but that's not who I currently am. How would I close that gap?
Close that gap. First off, it's like going to the gym. It's a muscle you start flexing. So don't think that you're going to like mystically change that. When I work with leaders, I work over a period of time and we remeasure and we see, the line going up and up and up as we're working on optimism. 3 things that you can look at when you're exercising optimism is, this problem that I'm looking at, how big is it in the grand scheme of things? Because our mind will zero in on problems and make them huge.
Mhm.
It takes up the whole space. So starting to recognize, how big is this problem actually? What's the scope of this problem? How much is it affecting? Second, how permanent is this problem? Is this today problem? Is this a this week problem? Is it a this month problem, a this quarter problem, or a this year problem? And just by doing those two things, you're going to put the problem in context and you're going to feel a lot more in control. And then you can start looking at what's in my influence, what's in my control, what's in my circle of influence, and what are the other resources? What have I not looked at yet? Who are the people that could contribute to the solution?
Okay.
So you would start looking at the problem for what it really is. Stop avoiding it. That's the first thing. Don't positive think your way through this. Look at the problem for real. Assess the problem, and then start opening yourself up to the solution, knowing that you are not in control of everything, but there are a lot of resources out there.
Okay.
And for myself, it's the belief that I can create solution. That is one thing that I hold as a mantra in my mind. I have the control to create solution. I am great at creating solutions. I can create any kind of solution. So even if I can't see it, I'm really good at creating solutions. And just holding that mantra in my mind allows me to step into that optimism.
So there's intrinsic motivation, there's optimism.
And
what's the third?
The third one is pursuing noble goals. That means connecting your daily choices with your overarching sense of purpose. So that is the 6 seconds definition. Now I'll tell you my definition. My definition is having a really clear sense of the impact that you're having and aligning what you're doing today with that impact. And the visual in my mind is an umbrella. So think of your impact as an umbrella. And this is not a today impact or next week impact or 5 years from now. It is ongoing for the rest of your life. Think about, when I die, what do I want people to say about me? What have I left them with? What is my legacy? Having that clarity and then filtering your decisions day to day through that lens. So these are the small actions. These are the goals for this quarter, the 5-year goals, the 10-year goals, how you're showing up to align with that impact. And purpose is not something we find, but something we create. And we create it with these small actions, the little decisions that we do every day. Now, as I'm talking about this, what's the feeling that comes up now in terms of drive?
It makes me think, okay, well, what if, like you, sometimes you're stuck on overdrive, but what if you're stuck like in neutral, or like you're stuck in procrastination, or you're stuck just spinning those wheels, like you can't go. Like, how do you get going again? Like, how do you restart, or how do you kind of hit reset if you're not in forward motion, I guess?
And it can be easy when you're just relying on your intrinsic motivation to get stuck. But when you have that sense of meaning, of something bigger than yourself, of something longer than today or next week or this quarter, you can see beyond the problems. Right? So with intrinsic motivation, you have the will to show up, and to do what needs to be done to pull that grit. Optimism shows you, opens up all the possibilities, and pursuing noble goal is the end. It's where you're going. And when these three things are lined up and you're pulling energy from all three, your drive will become balanced. And maybe today you need a little bit more optimism, or maybe you need a little bit more pursue noble goals, or maybe you need a lot more intrinsic motivation. And then tomorrow you'll balance it out.
Mm-hmm.
But when you have the three at play, it is easy and you feel supported. I'm just looking at the time. I know I have a hard stop here at the top of the hour.
Mm-hmm.
I want to leave this visual with you because this is the visual and it's kind of stupid. But it clicked in for me as I was working with these three drive factors. I had a memory of my sister playing, what is it called? Super Mario Kart, right? The race, I think there's like the Donkey Kong characters and
the princess, the toadstool.
On it and 64. Whereas we were teenagers, not to age me, but the intrinsic motivation are kind of like the power-ups. So like when you need that boost to like go forward and, get through something. The optimism is like the shortcuts that you might take or the new roads when there are obstacles. And the noble goal is the race. So if you just take the power-ups and you don't really have a sense of where you're going, well, one, you're probably going to crash, because if you take those power-ups too often, I don't know, that was my experience. I crashed a lot. So, but when you need that boost, it's there.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not to only rely, and that is where I see a lot of the issues is over relying on intrinsic motivation.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm relying on myself, I'm relying on my commitment, I'm relying on my values to show up.
Mm-hmm.
But then I just run out. My battery, and I don't realize until I'm in debt, and then I can't get out of bed.
Mm-hmm.
So we want to balance intrinsic motivation. Again, just to recap in case you're joining us right now: intrinsic motivation, optimism, and pursuing noble goals, which is meaning and purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And those three factors are going to make your life much easier. You're going to be able to draw energy to show up when it matters the most. And how you show up affect how your employees are going to show up. So as much as we may say this is not, a huge thing, it is a huge thing. If you're concerned about employee engagement, about them showing up, about, the level of commitment and energy they're putting into their work, starts with yourself. You are setting the tone. So if you're listening right now and you have enjoyed this video, let me know what you're taking away from it. It's, a habit as a coach of wanting to know how you're going to, what lessons you're picking up, or what insights you're picking up, and how you're going to use them. This is the accountability piece. This is taking new knowledge and putting it into action. So I'd like to know how you're going to incorporate this. Feel free to send me a DM. I'd love to talk to you. I'd love to know more about what you're getting from these videos and how you're using it. So thank you everyone for joining us today. And I can't wait to read your comments. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.